We will continue our discussion from the previous lecture of sedative hypnotics. In the previous lecture, we learned about what actually sedative hypnotics are, and the focus was on their pharmacological actions, particularly barbiturates and benzodiazepines. And by the end of the previous class, we came to know what are the basic differences between barbiturates and benzodiazepines. So which was better? Which was better in terms of safety profile? Benzodiazepines. Why? Because it needed higher dose to produce the effect that might be dangerous, like respiratory depression or cardiovascular depression. Whereas even slighter increase in dose would lead to respiratory depression, fall in BP, coma, death with barbiturates. Plus, barbiturates had other problems also. For example, the problem of enzyme induction. The other thing was that barbiturate, we don't have any antidote. Whereas for benzodiazepine poisoning, we have a antidote in case of overdoses. So these were the basic differences between benzodiazepines and barbiturates. We had not discussed the mechanism of action of either barbiturates or benzodiazepines in the previous class. So we will start with the mechanism of action of benzodiazepines and barbiturates, and we will see what are the differences in terms of mechanism of action between barbiturates and benzodiazepines are. Pharmacological actions of both barbiturates and benzodiazepines we have discussed previously. In this class, we will see their clinical usage, particularly the clinical usage of benzodiazepines, the types of benzodiazepines, or the classification of benzodiazepines, their clinical uses. One clinical use that we had seen was benzodiazepine was more preferred as an hypnotic compared to barbiturate, because the sleep cycle distortion, particularly the REM sleep cycle, but overall it was not distorted. So the problem of hangover was very minimal or not seen with benzodiazepines. So that was one of the advantages of benzodiazepine. And because hangover is seen very commonly with barbiturates, along with other reason, this was the one reason why barbiturate has gone out of use as an hypnotic nowadays, because we have better hypnotic available in the market. Now let us start the discussion with the mechanism of action of sedative hypnotics. Now you all must be knowing about GABA and glutamate. In terms of neurotransmitter, GABA is the main inhibitory neurotransmitter in the brain, whereas glutamate is the main excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain. Now, what is the rationale for understanding or starting this mechanism of action from the discussion of GABA and glutamate? See, one is excitatory, one is inhibitory. So in a normal healthy patient, there is a balance between the inhibitory neurotransmitter, that is GABA, and excitatory neurotransmitter, that is glutamate. So if there is a balance, there will be a control over the state of excitability in the brain areas. But imagine a scenario if the control tilts towards GABA. Remember, GABA is a principal inhibitory neurotransmitter. So if the control shifts towards GABA, what will happen? There will be sedation. There will be, in higher doses, there might be hypnosis, amnesia, even muscle relaxation can happen. And reverse will happen if there is reduction in GABA, whereas there is higher activity of glutamate. Then the reverse will happen. There will be more arousal, anxiety, restlessness, insomnia, increased activity. So for a normal activity, we need a balance between GABA and glutamate activity in the brain. Understood? Clear? Is it clear? Now, broadly, GABA is of two types. GABA receptor is of two types. One is inotropic, the other is metabotropic. GABA A and GABA C receptor, we can club it as inotropic receptor or ligand gated ion channel. This GABA A encloses the chloride channel within itself, whereas GABA B, which is a metabotropic receptor, it encloses a potassium channel within it. So what we have seen, GABA A receptors belong to the ligand gated ion channel, and it encloses the chloride channel within it. Now let us understand little bit more about GABA A. Then we will discuss the mechanism of action of benzodiazepines and barbiturate. The first thing that we came to know just now is that GABA A receptor is a ligand gated ion channel. Now, if you can see in this picture, the GABA A receptor is formed by 5 subunits: 2 alpha, 2 beta, and 1 gamma subunit. And these subunits are arranged around the central chloride channel. Can you see the figure and understand? We have a picture of GABA A receptor, and this receptor is formed by 5 subunits: 2 alpha, 2 beta, and 1 gamma subunit. And these subunits have enclosed the central chloride channel within it. If we go further, or if we study further, there are also multiple isoforms of each subunit. For example, there are 6 alpha subtype: alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4, alpha 5, alpha 6. Similarly, we have 4 beta subunit: beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, beta 4. Similarly, 3 gamma subunit. So these receptors are heterogeneous and can consist of different mixture of different polypeptide classes: alpha, beta, gamma, etc. So what we have seen, GABA A receptor is composed of a combination of 5 alpha, beta, and gamma subunit, and for each subunit many subtypes exist. Now what will happen if GABA binds to its receptor? Now we have seen GABA A encloses the chloride channel. Okay. Now GABA, if it is binding to its receptor, or if it is binding to a GABA A receptor, what will happen? it will allow the opening of the chloride channel. Okay, GABA binding to a GABA A receptor, what it will do? It will open the chloride channel, and this opening of chloride channel, what it will do? It will lead to influx of chloride ion, and this influx of chloride ion, what it will do? It will lead to hyperpolarization of the neuron. The sequence you are understanding? GABA is binding to a GABA A receptor. It is leading to opening of chloride channel. There is influx of chloride. Now this influx of chloride is causing hyperpolarization of the neurons. This hyperpolarization of the neurons is decreasing the neurotransmission by inhibiting the formation of action potential. The sequence of event you have understood? So what we have just now seen, binding of GABA to GABA A receptor, it is leading to opening of chloride channel. There is increased conductance of chloride ion. There is hyperpolarization of the postsynaptic neuron, and there is decreased synaptic neurotransmission. So till now you have understood? Okay. Now let us understand what actually benzodiazepines or barbiturate does. These benzodiazepines and barbiturates, these act through GABAergic system. They facilitate the action of GABA or GABA A. Now there is a benzodiazepine binding site. Benzodiazepine bind to a specific high affinity site, and this binding site of benzodiazepine is different from that of binding of the GABA. Benzodiazepine binding to a GABA A receptor, that particular site is different from the site of GABA binding. If you can see this picture, the binding site of benzodiazepine to GABA A receptor is located at the interface of the alpha subunit and the gamma subunit of the GABA A receptor. You can see in this picture where benzodiazepine is binding at the interface between alpha and gamma subunit. So the binding site of benzodiazepine in the GABA A receptor is different from that of binding site of GABA. GABA is binding to a different site of GABA A receptor, whereas benzodiazepine is binding to a different site of GABA A receptor. What happens once benzodiazepine binds with its receptor? It increases the GABA action on the GABA receptor. There will be the same sequence of event. There will be opening of chloride channel. There will be increased chloride influx to the cell. There will be increased hyperpolarization and inhibition of propagation of action potential. So what this binding of benzodiazepine to its receptor or GABA A receptor at a different site to that of GABA is doing, it is increasing the frequency of chloride channel opening. The chloride channel is opening with more frequency, and if chloride channel opens with more frequency, there will be increased influx of chloride, and there will be increased hyperpolarization of the cell membrane, and there will be inhibition of propagation of action potential. Now if you see this picture, it will make it more clear. If you can see here, now GABA, if you can see here, GABA is binding to its receptor binding site at GABA A. Now once GABA binds with its receptor, what it will do? It will open the chloride channel and leading to hyperpolarization of the cell. Now what happens if benzodiazepine binds to its site that is distinct from the binding site of GABA? You can see here, once benzodiazepine binds to its receptor site, what it will do? It will enhance the binding of GABA. So what is actually happening? Benzodiazepine binding to its receptor site, it is actually enhancing the binding of GABA to its receptor. So ultimately, the entry of chloride is more, there is hyperpolarization of the cell, and there is decreased excitability of the neuronal cells. Now, how the mechanism of action of barbiturates are different from that of benzodiazepines? Barbiturates binds to its own GABA receptor binding site, which is different from that of binding site of GABA or benzodiazepine. And this binding of barbiturate to its GABA receptor site, it increases the duration of opening of chloride channel. Now what benzodiazepine was doing, it was increasing the frequency of channel opening, whereas barbiturate is actually increasing the duration of opening of chloride channel. At higher doses, barbiturate can also mimic the action of GABA. It can act as GABA mimetic in higher doses. So apart from increasing the duration of the chloride channel opening, at higher doses it is also acting as a GABA mimetic, directly activating the chloride channel. In addition, barbiturate can block excitatory glutamate receptor, which is not seen with benzodiazepines. So how the mechanism of action of barbiturates are different from benzodiazepines? Benzodiazepine is increasing the frequency of opening of chloride channel, whereas barbiturate is increasing the duration of chloride channel opening. Apart from that, at higher doses, barbiturate can directly activate the chloride channel by acting as GABA mimetic or by mimicking the action of GABA. And the another thing is that barbiturate can block the excitatory glutamate receptor. So both drugs are actually increasing the influx of chloride ion, leading to hyperpolarization. But the thing that differentiates them, apart from the additional action that barbiturate has, barbiturate is actually increasing the duration of the chloride channel opening, whereas benzodiazepine is increasing the frequency of opening of the chloride channel. Understood? Now, In terms of or in context of benzodiazepine, you need to understand that benzodiazepine have got competitive antagonist and it has also got inverse agonist. Now, what do you mean by inverse agonist and what do you mean by antagonist? Basically, inverse agonist is a drug that decreases the response of an effector system below its basal level. Whereas competitive antagonists such as flumazenil, it can block the effect of both benzodiazepine and that those of inverse agonist, such as in case of benzodiazepine, we have inverse agonist beta carboline derivative. So flumazenil, which is a competitive antagonist of benzodiazepine, it can block both the effect of benzodiazepine as well as those of beta carboline derivative. So clinically, we use flumazenil to counteract the excessive effect of benzodiazepine. We were discussing in the initial part of this class that in case of barbiturate, we don't have any antidote to counteract the overdosage of barbiturate. But to counteract the overdosage of benzodiazepine, we have an antidote, which is a competitive antagonist of benzodiazepine, and the name is flumazenil. Understood? Now, till now we have understood about mechanism of action of benzodiazepines and barbiturates. Now, let us understand about one category of drug which is known as jet drug. But to understand about jet drug, you need to understand about different types of benzodiazepine receptors. Commonly, benzodiazepine receptors in the CNS can be classified as benzodiazepine 1 or benzodiazepine 2 or sometimes benzodiazepine 3 receptors subtypes, depending upon whether the binding site includes alpha 1 or alpha 2 subunit. Now, this benzodiazepine 1 receptor mainly contains alpha 1 isoforms or alpha 1 subunit. So 60% of GABA A receptor contains alpha 1 subunit. So most of the benzodiazepine receptors are of benzodiazepine 1 receptor subtype. And what is the importance of benzodiazepine 1 receptor subtype? It is responsible for actions such as sedation or in higher dosage hypnosis or wakefulness or anterograde amnesia, and it is highly concentrated in the cortex, thalamus, cerebellum. So any drug such as benzodiazepine, it non-selectively inhibits both benzodiazepine 1 receptor or benzodiazepine 2 receptor. So because it is inhibiting benzodiazepine 1 receptor, it will have effects such as sedation or hypnosis, and it will also cause amnesia. So amnesia is a common side effect of benzodiazepine because it is inhibiting benzodiazepine 1 receptor subtype, which is responsible for anterograde amnesia. Are you getting my point? Now, another type of benzodiazepine receptor is benzodiazepine 2 receptor. Benzodiazepine 2 receptor actually mediates the anti-anxiety action of benzodiazepine. So anxiolytic or anti-anxiety effect of benzodiazepines are mediated through benzodiazepine 2 receptors. And also benzodiazepine 3 receptors are there, which mainly leads to myorelaxant or muscle relaxant property. So remember, what we have seen, we have benzodiazepine 1 receptor, which is mainly responsible for sedation, wakefulness, amnesia. Then we have benzodiazepine 2 receptor, which is mainly responsible for the anti-anxiety effect. Then we have benzodiazepine 3 receptor, which is mainly responsible for the muscle relaxant effect. Now, what happens? Classical benzodiazepines, they are non-selective for all these receptors, whether it is benzodiazepine 1 or 2 or 3. So, because it is non-selective for benzodiazepine 1, 2 or 3, it will cause not only sedation or in higher dosage hypnosis, it will also cause amnesia, it will also cause anti-anxiety effect mediated through benzodiazepine 2 receptor, it will also cause muscle relaxation mediated through benzodiazepine 3 receptors. So imagine a scenario wherein you are not needing any anti-anxiety effect, you are not needing any muscle relaxant effect, you only need hypnotic effect. So which receptor you need to block among benzodiazepine 1, 2 or 3? Which receptor you need to block? Tell. Benzodiazepine 1. Because benzodiazepine 1 is actually responsible for the sedative and hypnotic effect. Okay, whereas benzodiazepine 2 was responsible for the anxiolytic effect and benzodiazepine 3 was responsible for the muscle relaxant effect. So we have jet drug such as zopiclone, zolpidem, galiplon. These are basically used as an hypnotic and they specifically act upon the benzodiazepine 1 receptor site. Have you got my point? So if you need only hypnotic effect, you can go for jet drug such as zolpidem, galiplon or zopiclone. Now let us discuss a little bit more about benzodiazepines. We have discussed the pharmacological actions in the previous class. Let us discuss its types or the classification of benzodiazepines, their clinical uses, their adverse effects, their drug interactions. Commonly, there are various benzodiazepines available in the market. They mainly differ in their pharmacokinetic properties. So the difference among different types of benzodiazepine is in terms of pharmacokinetic property. Apart from that, it might be possible that the selectivity with respect to the types of benzodiazepine receptors that a particular benzodiazepines have may lead to their differences in their action. But basically, they are similar in their pharmacological actions. Though some degree of selectivity has been reported, that's what I was telling you. It might be due to the selectivity to the type of benzodiazepine receptors. We can classify benzodiazepines according to their duration of action as short acting, intermediate acting, and long acting. Now these short acting compound have got an elimination half-life of less than 5 hours. An example is triazolam, midazolam, oxazepam. Now triazolam is mainly used as a hypnotic because they have got quick onset of action. Midazolam is basically used to sedate a person who is having a minor surgery or dental procedures or other minor medical procedures. Then intermediate acting benzodiazepines have a half-life in the range of 5 to 24 hours. Examples is alprazolam, lorazepam, nitrazepam, temazepam. And then we have long-acting benzodiazepines such as diazepam, florazepam, clonazepam. Now this is one way of classifying benzodiazepines. Another way of classifying benzodiazepine is according to their indications. But if we discuss both of them together, it might be a little bit confusing. So for now, let us concentrate on the classification as per their duration of action: short acting, intermediate acting, and long acting. I was telling you that different benzodiazepines, they differ mostly in terms of their pharmacokinetic profile. Now let us understand it little bit more. Diazepam is a long-acting benzodiazepines, okay, and very commonly used benzodiazepines. Diazepam is most rapidly and completely absorbed, but if you give diazepam by intramuscular route, its absorption will be slow, incomplete, or erratic. So if you need benzodiazepines by intramuscular route, so you need to go with lorazepam or midazolam. So these are the only benzodiazepine with reliable absorption from the intramuscular site. Sometimes diazepam is given rectally if you need to control the seizure. So rectal route is sometimes used for diazepam in the convulsing patients. So this is in terms of absorption. Okay. All benzodiazepines are lipophilic. And what is the clinical implication of this lipophilic property of benzodiazepine? Because these are lipophilic, these are widely distributed into the body tissues and they can easily cross the blood-brain barrier. Okay? They can not only cross the blood-brain barrier, they can also cross the placental barrier during pregnancy. And in a lactating mother, they get excreted in the milk. So you have to be cautious, or as far as possible avoid benzodiazepines during pregnancy because it can cross the placental barrier. It can lead to fetal and neonatal depression because it is also excreted in the milk. And while we were discussing the pharmacokinetic of barbiturates, we came across a term which was known as redistribution. What was this redistribution? Redistribution was the major factor for termination of the action of these sedative hypnotics such as barbiturates or benzodiazepines. In redistribution, the drug get redistributed from the highly vascular tissues to the less vascular tissues. In this case, redistribution is happening from CNS to the skeletal muscle and then to the less vascular tissue, that is adipose tissue. Now let us understand and closely see this particular picture. What it is depicting, that some of the benzodiazepines, they are getting biotransformed to clinically active metabolite, and that metabolite is desmethyl diazepam. Desmethyl diazepam is a major metabolite, and this desmethyl diazepam plays an important role as far as clinical effects of diazepam or prazepam or other drugs such as chlorazepate or chlordiazepoxide is concerned. But for now we will focus on diazepam. Now diazepam is getting converted into major metabolite which is known as see the picture and answer. Diazepam is getting converted into major metabolite which is known as desmethyl diazepam. And then desmethyl diazepam is further converted into oxazepam. Oxazepam is also marketed as such as oxazepam. Now there are certain other drugs such as lorazepam or oxazepam. They do not need conversion into active metabolite. They lack active metabolite. They directly go into the process of conjugation. So what we have seen, that diazepam is producing the active metabolites such as desmethyl diazepam and oxazepam. And what is the clinical significance of these metabolites? These metabolites are basically increasing the duration of the action of drugs such as diazepam. These are the active metabolite of diazepam, and because these metabolites are increasing the duration of action of diazepam, you need to be careful while prescribing drugs such as diazepam in elderly patients or those with liver diseases. Because these metabolites may persist in the blood and in the body for many days or many weeks, even after termination of the prolonged therapy. So if at all you need to prescribe benzodiazepines in the elderly patients, you should go for benzodiazepines which lacks active metabolite. And what are the examples of benzodiazepines which lacks active metabolite? Oxazepam and lorazepam. These drugs lack active metabolite. But one benefit in terms of this longer acting drug or longer acting benzodiazepine is that these longer acting benzodiazepines, they actually prevent the return of or rapid return of anxiety and delay the development of withdrawal symptoms. So the chances of withdrawal symptoms will be more in cases of the shorter acting benzodiazepines compared to the longer acting benzodiazepines. Now let us understand the metabolism and excretion of benzodiazepines. The metabolism of benzodiazepines happens in liver. They are hepatically metabolized and they are excreted through kidney. Now, phase 1 and phase 2 biotransformation reaction is important in context of the metabolism of benzodiazepines. In phase 1, the oxidation reaction is happening, and in phase 2, conjugation reaction is happening, and then the conjugate is excreted in the urine. So what we had seen for drugs such as diazepam, through this phase 1 reaction, they are leading to formation of active metabolite, and these active metabolite generation can lead to cumulative effect with multiple doses. And we had seen that drugs such as lorazepam, oxazepam, temazepam, these are directly conjugated. They do not go through that phase 1 oxidation reaction. They are directly conjugated and they are excreted in the urine. So they have got least residual effect. As you can see in this picture, drugs such as lorazepam or oxazepam and temazepam, these are directly conjugated to an inactive water soluble metabolite which is excreted in the kidney. Are you understanding? Till now, have you understood? So if a patient is suffering from liver failure, which drug is safer to be given, diazepam or lorazepam or oxazepam or temazepam? Naturally, it is safer to prescribe lorazepam, oxazepam, temazepam because they do not undergo the phase 1 oxidation reaction. They are not converted to active metabolite. They are directly conjugated into inactive product and they are excreted through kidney, and they do not accumulate on repeated administration because they are not converted into active metabolite. Now, what is the effect of benzodiazepines on pregnancy? I have already discussed. Should we prescribe benzodiazepines in pregnancy and lactation, or we should avoid? We should avoid, because benzodiazepines are highly lipophilic drug. They can cross the placental barrier, and during the first trimester, if they are prescribed, they can lead to fetal abnormalities, or in the third trimester, they can lead to fetal dependence, which can manifest as floppy baby syndrome. So this syndrome very commonly used in examination in MCQ questions, floppy baby syndrome. And also benzodiazepines are excreted in the breast milk, so they should be avoided during lactation also. Now, so what are the actions of benzodiazepines? Now, initially I had told you benzodiazepines act through benzodiazepine 1, benzodiazepine 2 and benzodiazepine 3 receptor subtype. Benzodiazepine 1 receptor was responsible for sedation, hypnosis, amnesia. Then benzodiazepine 2 receptor was responsible for anti-anxiety effect. Benzodiazepine 3 receptor was mainly responsible for muscle relaxation. So they are non-selective for benzodiazepine 1, 2 or 3 receptor, because of that, at low doses all the benzodiazepines are anxiolytic, or they have got anti-anxiety effect. All the benzodiazepines that are used to treat anxiety have got some sedative property, and as you increase the dose of benzodiazepines, they can produce hypnosis. Are you getting my point? So they have got anti-anxiety effect, they have got sedative effect, and little higher doses they have got hypnotic effect, and they have also got muscle relaxant effect because they relax the spasticity of skeletal muscle. And benzodiazepines have also got anticonvulsant activity and particularly useful in the treatment of status epilepticus. Now this graph you can very much remember. In the previous class this we have discussed. So this basically depicts the difference between barbiturate and benzodiazepine. For barbiturate, even a smaller increase in dose can lead to anesthesia, respiratory depression, cardiovascular depression, coma and death. For same effect to happen with benzodiazepine, you need higher increase in the dose. So which one is more safer, benzodiazepines or barbiturate? Benzodiazepines. So therapeutic uses. Now you have understood the pharmacological actions of benzodiazepines. They have got anti-anxiety effect, they have got sedative effect, they have got hypnotic effect, they have got anticonvulsant effect, they have got muscle relaxant effect. So all these effects can be utilized clinically. So in low doses you can use benzodiazepines as anti-anxiety. And the short acting agents can also be used as a pre-medication for anxiety provoking or unpleasant procedure, such as if a patient is going for endoscopic procedure or bronchoscopic procedure or dental procedure. You can use these drugs to reduce the anxiety. These drugs will produce a type of conscious sedation. But these drugs can lead to anterograde amnesia. Now what is this anterograde amnesia? There will be impairment of memory for the events following the drug administration. Once the drug has been administered, patient will not remember the things that has happened to the patient following the drug administration. Same drug which has got anti-anxiety effect in the low doses, as you increase the dose, you can notice sedative effect. Further increase in dose will lead to hypnotic effect. Then previous class we had discussed that barbiturates we do not prefer as hypnotic. Rather we prefer benzodiazepine as hypnotic. So what was the basic reason for that? Basic reason for preferring benzodiazepines over barbiturates as hypnotic was benzodiazepine do not produce hangover effect because it do not distort the sleep cycle. The overall effect on the REM phase is minimal. So it preserves the near normal sleep cycle and cause less rebound of REM sleep after withdrawal. And the basic thing is that even if you give higher doses, it do not lead to respiratory depression or cardiovascular depression. And they have got less potential for drug abuse and have got higher therapeutic index. So for hypnosis we use flurazepam, which is a long-acting benzodiazepine. We can use temazepam, which is intermediate acting benzodiazepines, or we can use short-acting benzodiazepines such as triazolam. But with short-acting benzodiazepine, the problem is the withdrawal symptom will be more prominent. So here you can see as an hypnotic, we can use diazepam, flurazepam, nitrazepam, alprazolam, temazepam, or sometimes triazolam. Now we have also seen that benzodiazepines have got anticonvulsant effect. For anticonvulsant property, diazepam and lorazepam are the drug of choice for terminating the grand mal seizures and in cases of status epilepticus. As far as their emergency usage in seizures or terminating the seizures are concerned, it is good. But on long-term uses, tolerance develops to its anti-epileptic effect. So benzodiazepines are mainly used in an acute condition during an emergency to control status epilepticus or to terminate the grand mal seizures. But for chronic use, we avoid using benzodiazepines. Apart from diazepam or lorazepam, we can use clonazepam for the treatment of grand mal epileptic seizure on acute conditions or status epilepticus. Other uses, we have seen that benzodiazepines have got muscle relaxant activity, and midazolam can be used in induction of anesthesia. Midazolam is which type of benzodiazepine? Short acting, intermediate acting, or long acting? Midazolam. It is a short acting benzodiazepine. And midazolam, I had told you while discussing the pharmacokinetic, its absorption through intramuscular route is good. So it can be given through intramuscular route also, in contrast to diazepam. With diazepam, the intramuscular absorption is erratic. Okay. Discuss the adverse effects of benzodiazepines. Now, adverse effect of benzodiazepines can be discussed in terms of three broad categories. What happens during acute overdose of benzodiazepine? What happens during normal therapeutic use? And the third category is the tolerance and dependence happening with benzodiazepines. As far as acute overdose is concerned, if you compare benzodiazepine overdose with that of barbiturate overdose, many times we have discussed that benzodiazepine overdose is less dangerous compared to barbiturate overdose, because the therapeutic margin is more, plus we have got the antidote available for treating the acute overdose of benzodiazepine. And the chances of respiratory depression or cardiovascular depression is less or minimal with benzodiazepines compared to barbiturates. But if patient is using benzodiazepines along with another CNS depressants, commonly like for example with alcohol, so it can lead to severe life-threatening respiratory depression, and other effects might get potentiated if patient is using these combinations. The other thing is that the unwanted effect occurring during the therapeutic use. The patient should avoid driving or doing any manual skills while on benzodiazepines, because it can lead to drowsiness, confusion, amnesia, impaired coordination. And also I have told you that these drug enhances the depressant, CNS depressant effect of other drug in a more additive way. So one precaution that we had discussed earlier, that avoid using benzodiazepine during pregnancy and lactation. The second is avoid using benzodiazepines if you have to drive the car. Now let us discuss about tolerance and dependence. Now, what do you mean by tolerance? In general pharmacology, you have read these terms. Tolerance is reduction in drug effect requiring an increase in doses to maintain the same response. So chronic use of benzodiazepine basically lead to down regulation of benzodiazepine receptors. But this tolerance, as far as tolerance is concerned, the anti-anxiety effect of benzodiazepines are less subject to tolerance than sedative and hypnotic effect. So tolerance do not appear to the anti-anxiety effect, but it might appear for the sedative and hypnotic effect. Dependence. Now, what do you mean by dependence? Dependence can be of two types: physiological dependence and psychological dependence. Now, what is this physiological dependence? If a patient is on benzodiazepines for a longer period, and if you stop the drug, it might evoke the unpleasant symptoms. Usually that is opposite to that of the drug effect. And then psychological dependence. Psychological dependence means that the patient will feel compelled to take the drug, and if he or she is separated from the drug, they feel anxiety. So the good thing is that both physiological dependence and psychological dependence only happens with benzodiazepines if we use very high dosage of benzodiazepines on a prolonged period. Other thing is that addiction to the drug addiction, which is basically a severe form of psychological dependence, do not a big problem with benzodiazepines. So addiction is not a major problem with benzodiazepines. Now withdrawal symptoms can happen, particularly as I told you, if the drug is used for a prolonged period in a very high doses, the withdrawal symptom can happen, and withdrawal symptoms are actually opposite to that of the therapeutic effect of the benzodiazepines, such as agitation, restlessness, insomnia. But the good thing is that withdrawal symptoms with benzodiazepines are less intense compared to barbiturate. Drug interaction. If you compare the chances of drug interaction of benzodiazepines with barbiturates we had seen that barbiturates were microsomal enzyme inducer. So the chances of microsomal enzyme induction, and that is leading to reduced effect of the other drug being metabolized by cytochrome P450 was very high with barbiturate. But these effects are not seen with benzodiazepines. But because benzodiazepines are metabolized in liver via cytochrome P450, some drugs such as cimetidine, isoniazid or OCPs may reduce the benzodiazepine metabolism. And one thing that we have discussed earlier, that if you use benzodiazepines with other CNS depressant drugs such as alcohol or even opioids, the effects of benzodiazepine is pronounced, or if it is more additive. Just I will finish this class with the discussion on atypical anxiolytics. Buspirone is a drug which is a 5-HT1A receptor agonist. Now, how this buspirone is different from benzodiazepines? This buspirone does not interact directly with the GABAergic system. They have got selective anti-anxiety effect. They lead to anti-anxiety effect without causing marked sedative hypnotic effect, or without causing anticonvulsant or muscle relaxant effects. And they have got minimal abuse liability. But the thing is that anti-anxiety effect with buspirone takes more than 1 week to appear. So in panic disorder wherein you need immediate relief, these drugs are of no use. So one bad thing compared to benzodiazepines are that their anxiolytic effect takes more than 1 week to appear. But the good thing is that they do not lead to any sedative or hypnotic effect. They do not lead to any muscle relaxant. They do not have any anticonvulsant effect, and they do not potentiate the CNS depressant action of the other drug. So with this, I will complete the discussion on sedative hypnotic. I hope you have understood something out of this class. So thank you.